One Man's Family, brought to you by the makers of Fleischmann's Yeast and Royal Puddings. One Man's Family begins its 16th year in radio today by rededicating itself to the American home and to the mothers and fathers of the younger generation and to their bewildering offspring. Today we present Chapter 5, Book 62, entitled One Man's Family Celebrates its 15th Anniversary.
From 1932 to 1947. Goodness.
That's right, Mom. From Herbert Hoover to Harry Truman.
From Flapper to Bobby Soxer.
From WPA to OPA.
Yes, Dave, I was just going to say, from the Great Depression, when there was plenty of everything and no money to buy it, to plenty of money and nothing to buy.
1932 to 47. From the period of the great American isolation through our greatest war to our present conviction that we are part of the world community.
15 full years, 15 historical years, 15 dramatic years. The end of Prohibition, the Great Depression, the rise and fall of Hitler and Mussolini, the rise and fall of gang warfare in the United States.
The rise and fall of women's skirts and their rise again.
Yes, 15 years is a good long span.
Why, just imagine it. There are young men and women walking the streets today who can't remember time when one man's family didn't exist.
I can hardly remember myself. Yes, and through all these years, one man's family has had one central theme, one main purpose for being, the American home, the American family. The paramount thought being that so long as the American family survived, these United States would remain safe and secure. Oh, yes. Throughout the years, one man's family has meant many things to many people. There was, for instance, the wife who wrote that her husband's last deathbed request was to hear the Barbers, and afterwards closed his eyes and went to sleep. And the young man who was arrested in Chicago for purse snatching, only he said he didn't do it, that he was listening to One Man's Family at the time. And he told the judge the story of that week so completely that he was acquitted. And the convict in the South Carolina prison, who always heard the show because the Barbers were the kind of family he had always meant to have. But somehow the penitentiary got him. And then there was the father in the Middle West, who gave his children their choice of listening to One Man's Family on Sunday or attending church. And best of all, many an American soldier who had been brought up on the family, who became a most ardent audience away from home, not only because it gave him a taste of the home life that he was missing, but because he knew his own family at home also was listening. Yes, the show has meant many things to many people, but always, somehow, some way, it has been tied close to the home and the family, and the good which they bring out in all of us.
Henry.
Yes, as I was saying...
Henry.
Yes, what is it, Fanny?
Well, it's time for you to stop talking. Ken Carpenter has something to say.
Huh?
Ken Carpenter.
Oh, by George, now, yes. Well, as soon as you've heard Mr. Carpenter, you'll hear the principal portion of our 15th anniversary celebration. All right, Mr. Carpenter, move right along. No nonsense about it.
On the American table, the breadbasket or plate is one of the busiest, most popular dishes. Sweet rolls, cinnamon buns, coffee rings for breakfast, Parker House rolls, and so on for the other meals. All nutritious, all nourishing, all delicious. If you bake at home, use Fleischmann's yeast to give your rolls lightness, even texture, and especially delicious flavor. It's the amazing little powerhouse that brings the dough to life, adds flavor to all the other ingredients. Yes, Fleischmann's yeast has been America's dependable standby for the past 4 generations. Great-grandmother used Fleischmann's, and her baking was famous. And ever since then, year in, year out, Fleischmann's yeast has been the leader. So today, Fleischmann's familiar label is the symbol for top baking results. Results you can always be proud of. Ask for Fleischmann's yeast if you bake at home. Now I'm going to turn the show over to Paul.
Thank you. As we said in the opening today, on the beginning of our 16th year, we are rededicating One Man's Family to the American home and the American family. For 15 years, this has been our principal theme, as we're going to demonstrate for you in a moment. But first, may I suggest that today, more than any time in your memory or mine, the need for the home and what the home stands for is most vital. That now, if ever, there is need for the moral strength, the unswerving integrity, the basic Christian ethics and tenets, which are the stuff the American home is made of. We hope to prove to you the urgent, crying need for a revitalized family life today. And now, to go far back into the pages of one man's family. This is what we said on April the 6th, 1934. Clifford, please.
In these United States, we pride ourselves that all men are born free and equal, that there is no royal family set apart from the rest of us. I think this is a mistake. I think there's a touch of royalty in every conservative, firmly established American home. I believe the children of these homes are born to the purple. They have behind them glory and honor and dignity and tradition. Just as surely as empires were molded by the will of kings, so this nation is molded by the will of the American family. And just as surely as empires crumbled under the touch of dissolute, degenerate monarchs, so this nation will fall away with the corruption of the American family.
Well, a bit of something to think about.
You know, I can remember Dad saying that to us way back there, just as plain as though it was yesterday. 1934. Goodness, Cliff, you and I weren't dry behind the ears yet.
You couldn't have told us that then.
How true, how true.
Goodness, we were young.
You were young. What does that make me?
Bottle baby, no doubt.
Well, that's what we said in 34. And now, here is what we said in 1936. Mom, will you do the honors?
Already, Paul?
Here, Mom, put on your glasses.
Oh, goodness. Where's that copy you gave me, Paul?
Right in your hands, Mother.
Of course. Now, Paul.
Yes. This is what we said in 1936.
Marriage is the gateway through which a man or woman obtains personal experience in the field of human relations. Parenthood is the opportunity for putting that experience to practical use. Parents should not say, we shall have children because it is our God-given right, but rather we shall have children because we are able to give them intelligent, physical, mental, and moral training. Mother love may be beautiful, but mother love combined with intelligent discipline is the force which turns children into normal human beings and good citizens. Misdirected and misguided offspring results in one of civilization's most appalling wastes and expensive problems. For an undisciplined, unprincipled child grows into a useless citizen, another human life wasted, another burden for civilization to bear. Good citizens are necessary to civilization, but good parents are obligatory if civilization is to continue.
Exactly.
You still agree to that, huh, Dad?
More than ever.
Oh, yes. What a waste of time and effort and pain and worry to go to all the trouble of conceiving and bringing a child into the world only to abandon him to indolence, dishonor, and disreputable habits.
And yet I think I'm going to be able to bring you proof that this is exactly what a large portion of our parents are doing.
Oh, no, Paul.
Well, don't rush me. We'll get to that presently. Just now, Claudia, you're going to read us what we said about family life in June of 1937.
What Dad said.
Huh?
See if you remember saying this 10 years ago.
Ooh.
In this day, with gods of finance and the gods of power tumbling in a shower of unutterable chaos on every side, and with the very foundation of nations trembling on the brink, it is only natural that each of us should be looking for something firm, something staunch, something honest to which we can cling, something that neither fire nor flood, nor earthquake, nor avarice, nor greed, nor war, nor the rumor of war, can shake from its deep-rooted foundation. What is that something? In these United States, we have the American family. So long as the American family shall live, with its wholesomeness, with its ideals, and its basic principles of discipline and citizenship, we have little to fear. But once let the family life of America lose its own self-respect, and the fate descending on Germany and Italy will be a small catastrophe indeed, compared to the bitterness, the affliction, and the desolation which shall encompass us. Therefore, when we bring you the saga of the Barbour family, we do more than tell a story. We pay tribute to the American family way of living, and we hope, in some small extent, extol its virtue and unveil its weaknesses.
You remember saying that, Dan?
Huh? I don't remember, but I'll be very happy to take the credit for it.
He said it's all right. The sort of thing he was always preaching to you children.
With excellent results, I'd say.
Yes, I guess some of it soaked in.
Yes, yes. There were times, however, when I felt as if I was pouring water on a duck's back.
Well, now we come to the year 1940.
The year before the war.
The year before we got into it.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Hazel, will you read us what we had to say about family life in 1940?
Yes, Paul. Mother Nature, who is an elemental old lady and interested only in fundamentals, requires of the human organism but three functions: to be born, to reproduce its kind, and to die. That is all any of us need to do to satisfy the laws of nature. But somewhere along the rugged pathway which represents the evolution of man, this superior creation of nature picked up a spark of fire, a spark burning so fierce and hot that with each advancing generation it has increased in its intensity. A spark so burning with promise, so glowing with hope, that it has driven the human race far beyond nature's elemental requirements of birth, reproduction, and death. It has made man stand straight and look toward heaven. It has made him think. It has stirred his imagination and given him glimpses of greatness and genius. It has made him consider his kind, cultivate humanity, understand the value of beauty and love and goodness. And greatest of all, it gave him the power of conceiving and creating the family home as we know it today, the greatest, the most important of all man's creations. That is, the home.
I say that's an excellent thought.
Man's greatest achievement, the home. That's okay.
I want you to notice the difference between what Hazel just read out of 1940 and what I'm going to ask Nicky to read out of 1941. There's a sort of calmness and sense of security in Hazel's words. Now listen to what Nicky reads just a year later. Please, Nicky.
Right on. Today, the American family as a unit of society is more precious, more deserving of care and cultivation, and at the same time in more danger than at any other period in our national history. For we can promise you that out of the welter of strife and disorder in which the world is now engaged is coming great change. Practically nothing will be the same. We have seen one government after another submerged. We have seen peace-loving people forced to pull the plow out of the furrow and beat it into an implement of war. Right here in these Americas, we have seen, in a few months, weakling airplane factories blossom into a gigantic major industry. Shipyards which haven't turned out a vessel in years suddenly bursting into life and energy. We've seen our men in uniform again, marching up and down. We've made Iceland an outpost, and our South American neighbors have suddenly become nearer and nearer. And in the plethora of jobs, the WPA has become one of the dodo birds of the past. And wages have gone up, and prices have gone up, and everywhere there is change, change, change. The government is modified to meet these times, and our banking system is modified, and our tax laws are modified. And our institutions of learning are modifying their views. And every other institution, by reason of necessity or convenience or circumstance, is modifying its activities. Even the minds of men are thinking new thoughts, uncertain thoughts, worried thoughts, but still new thoughts. The businessman, the laboring man, the farmer, the industrialist, the politician, all are sitting in the anxious seat of change and uncertainty. And there is only one place where the American man may go for refuge, for comfort, for security: the bosom of his family, the American family. Nations may fall, institutions be dissolved, great men be brought to their knees. But so long as the American father can close the door of his home against the world, so long as the American mother can gather her children about her to love them and teach them, so long as the American child can have the granite solid foundation of the home to cling to, family love to warm the heart, and family continuity to give him a belief in and a hope for the future, all is not lost. In a word, so long as the American home exists, America itself exists. But beware, the American family is not modified with the changing of other institutions. There is the danger. It must be warmed and watched and nurtured as never before, lest it slip through our fingers and is gone. as many other things are being lost to us in these restless, urgent days.
Beautifully done, Nicholas.
Oh, yes.
But did you notice the urgency, the sense of a need for preserving something important?
Yes. What I read had a feeling that we possessed something precious. What Nicky read hinted at a dread of losing it.
Yes, there was undoubtedly a great transition in American living from the early part of 1940 to the end of 1941.
Well, there was indeed.
And now we come to 1947.
Oh, we're jumping the war years completely?
Yes, we're doing that deliberately. What we feared, what we dreaded might happen in 1941 is becoming a reality in 1947. Hazel, will you read this letter which we received a few weeks ago? When you've read it, I'll explain further.
Miss Paul. Office of the Director, Federal Bureau of Investigation, United States Department of Justice, Washington, D.C., March 29, 1947. Dear Mr. Barbour, on Sunday afternoon, March 23rd, I listened to One Man's Family, as is my custom on Sunday, whenever it is possible to sit down with a radio. I did want to drop this personal note to tell you how deeply I appreciate the splendid manner in which you developed the necessity of building up the home and the need for emphasizing constructive family life. I thought the program was particularly well done. The need is so great that this point cannot be stressed too frequently, and possibly by constant emphasis an impression can be made. With best wishes and kind regards, sincerely yours, J. Edgar Hoover.
Hey, a pat on the head right from the top.
Golly.
But that's not the point. The important thing is that even our leaders in Washington are worried about the American family and the carelessness and laxity of today's parents. And just to emphasize Mr. Hoover's point and to demonstrate what One Man's Family is still emphasizing after 15 years, I want to repeat what was said by Jack and Dad on the show of March 23rd. Go ahead, Jack.
Dad, you've had more than 50 years now of being a family man.
Yes.
What do you think of it?
Huh?
Would you devote yourself to a wife and home and family if you had it all to do over?
What a question.
You would?
Certainly, with all my heart.
You really honestly feel that the end achieved is worth all the years of trouble and effort it takes?
I do.
Well, there are a lot of people in the United States who don't think like that.
Well, you mark my word, Jack. If American home and family life fall into disrepute, then the people of this nation are going to feel real tragedy. Because if we lose our ideals and our humanity and our godliness and our love of justice, which are the virtues taught in the home, if we lose all these, then we're a nation without a heart. We're a ship without a rudder. And just as surely as you and I are standing here, we'll drift into the chaos that has fallen upon the rest of the world. We'll be a people at the mercy of tyrants. In one generation, we'll be an ignorant, drifting, helpless people, a nation at cross purposes, a lost nation, ready to be swallowed up by the first outside power to come along.
Dad, you really feel the American home and family is that important?
The American home is the backbone of this nation. The American family is the lifeblood of American democracy, the seed of our way of life. If we let that seed die, if we kill the divine spark, then we've killed America.
Well, when you come to think of it, that's one of the first things Hitler did in Germany. Broke up families, made a mockery of marriage and home ties, put a prize on license and illegitimacy.
Yes, I'll never believe that the great body of America will give way to any such business.
And I quite agree with you, Henry. We'll never fall to such a level.
Of course not.
Naturally.
Are you also sure about that?
Hey, of course.
Huh? What are you driving at, Paul?
Well, now we come to the climax of this whole business. In the March 24th issue of Life magazine, there was an editorial headed The Family. I'm going to read you a portion of that editorial, and if when I'm finished, you still feel so smug and secure in where we're headed, I'll be interested in hearing you say so.
In heaven's name, Paul, read it. What is it?
It begins this way. There is strong evidence that the institution of the family, not only in the United States, but throughout Western civilization, is at a crisis. Some people are more alarmed about it than others, but certain statistics are painful indeed. For instance, 1 out of 3 American marriages now ends in divorce. John Haynes Holmes, on a recent radio broadcast, said,
What's wrong with marriage, you ask? Our society is sick. Our social order is going to pieces.
and a few days before that, Dr. Carl Zimmerman Harvard sociologist told the American Social Hygiene Association,
Evidence indicates that our middle-class family system has reached its maximum demoralization, or will very soon. If left alone, the family system will break up before the end of the century.
the family is not a biological necessity. Primitive man thought that birth was a matter of the seasons, and it was not until he became better informed that he assumed responsibility toward his offspring. Once he did so, the family became the basis of human society. And the metabolism of the family has measured the health of Western civilization ever since it began some 3,000 years ago. Professor Zimmerman points out that
The Western family has collapsed twice before. In Greece about 300 B.C. and in Rome about 300 A.D. In each case marking the decline of those states. Both times the manifestations were the same. 1, almost universal corruption and disregard of the marriage agreement. 2, vanishing birth rate. 3, denigration of parents. 4, juvenile and adult delinquency.
it remained for our own epoch to give the family its first legal kicks in the teeth when in France in 1791 and Russia in 1917, the familial legal system was temporarily overthrown by revolutionary governments. Nevertheless, the body of Western common law strongly supports the institution of the family. In the frequently cited language of Justice Birdseye of the New York State Supreme Court of 1857,
The family is the origin of all society and of all government. The whole frame of government and laws has been said to exist only to protect and support the family.
the bad news. Most social scientists are agreed that the family, particularly the American family, needs all the support and protection it can get right now. Some of them point out that our family system is undergoing the Greco-Roman style of dissolution in all its 4 tragic phases. 1, we are witnessing an intercontinental divorce spree, and the all-around champion is the United States, where about 1 urban marriage in 2 goes on the rocks, thus approximating the record hung up by the Bolshevik free lovers prior to Russia's familial reformation of 1936. And nobody knows how many American upper-middle-class families are precariously held together because the partners feel that the Internal Revenue Bureau doesn't leave them enough money to support separate establishments. The morality of this situation is no less extraordinary than the statistics. As Dr. Holmes has truly said,
When a woman takes a 4th husband who is finding in her a 5th wife, they have no more to do with marriage than prostitution has to do with chastity.
2, the sociologists draw another parallel between the classical and the current family crisis in the international sit-down strike against motherhood, which has been accelerating since the Industrial Revolution. Here again, the United States is well up front. 44% of our families have no children at all, and 22% have only 1. At this rate, the United States will begin losing population by 1980. 3, sociologists Austin L. Porterfield and H. Ellenson Sally find the old sex moral so broken among all ages and classes that
It is becoming increasingly difficult to define sex delinquency, and perhaps meaningless to try to do so, except in certain types of behavior involving cruelty and exploitation.
4, if parents are showing less respect for children, children in the classic mode are showing less for parents and everybody else. J. Edgar Hoover's number 1 job is protecting our atomic secrets. Number 2 is curbing juvenile crime. The recent batch of laws requiring premarital health inspection and cooling off periods prior to marriage licensing are nothing more than a recognition by the state of the decline of parental control. Why? As social scientists see it, the chief enemies of the Western family are the selfishness and brutality of our age. They see these qualities arising in part from our family degeneration and then returning to further the family's destruction. To some sociologists, incidentally, the wholesome family means a permanent pair of parents and at least 3 children. As an institution, of course, the family needs no defense. It is the traditional seat of humanitarianism in the human race, the center of all important informal child education and personality development. The wealth of nations does not consist in natural resources, but in the character of the people. No one can seriously deny that the family is the basic cell responsible for the production of those people and that character. Every remedy proposed for rescuing the family today was grasped at in one way or another by the Augustine Caesars in their attempt to restore the Roman family in the last 2 centuries of the empire. They may work now, they didn't work then. But if the sociologists offer us dubious hope, we can look elsewhere. The problem is moral as well as social. And what we have that the Greeks and Romans didn't have is a universal moral code, the most important of whose codicils is the definition of right and wrong, familial, no less than personal. The strongest foundation of Christian society and the Christian family is a Christian conscience and a Christian heart.
Huh? Why, if that's all we've got left, then it's time we all got down on our knees and prayed.
Sure, yes.
Is it any wonder that we've made the home and the family our theme for 15 years?
And we'd better continue to do so now and so long as we're able.
We are dedicated and rededicated to its world without end. Amen.
Jack's favorite room in the house has always been the kitchen, especially when one of his sisters is cooking.
I won't be in the way, will I?
Not at all. You can put the groceries away.
Okay, on condition that I can talk as I do it.
I'd like to see anybody stop you.
Fleischmann's yeast goes in the refrigerator. Wonderful stuff, Fleischmann's yeast. I bet you'd be mighty proud of me if I thought up something like that kept on doing good in the world for 79 years.
Well, I certainly would.
79 years.
And tops all the time.
That's what I mean. America's favorite yeast through 4 generations.
Just think of all the rolls and bread it's baked in that time.
Someday I'm going to figure out how many times they'd go around the moon. I suppose a roll is 4 inches long. How many inches around the moon?
Maybe you'd better figure something on Earth, Jack.
Okay. Figure all the people have enjoyed those rolls and things made with Fleischmann's yeast. Why, standing shoulder to shoulder, they would cover continental United States. And Alaska, maybe.
And then some.
Boy, it's a lot of happiness all in one piece. And all from these yeast cakes.
Well, put them in the refrigerator. They're getting warm in your hand.
Let's see, 79 years times 3.
Yes, Fleischmann's yeast is first choice today, just as it has been for the past 4 generations. If you bake at home, make sure of the flavor that calls for more. Get Fleischmann's yeast. It's the amazing little powerhouse that brings the dough to life. It raises the dough, makes it light and airy, gives you even texture and delicious flavor. So follow great-grandmother's example. Look for the famous familiar label. Ask your grocer for Fleischmann's yeast if you bake at home. You've just heard Chapter 5, Book 62 of One Man's Family, written and produced under the direction of Carlton E. Morse for the makers of Fleischmann's yeast and royal puddings. Chapter 6, entitled This Business of Nicolette Moore, will come to you next week at this same hour. You're worried because food bills seem to be getting higher and higher? Well, then make a note of this. Royal puddings still cost only a few pennies a serving. And what a grand dessert they are. Royal puddings taste more delicious, say 8 out of every 10. Yes, when 1,052 Royal users told why they switched to Royal from other popular brands, Royal puddings taste more delicious, said 8 out of every 10. You'll surely agree when you try Royal Butterscotch Pudding. You'll marvel that a dessert so rich and flavorful, so downright delicious, actually costs only a few pennies a serving. Royal puddings are so easy to make, too. Take no sugar. So no wonder women buy more Royal puddings than any other kind. Be smart. Serve Royal puddings several times a week. You have 3 tempting flavors to choose from. And remember, they cost only a few pennies a serving. One Man's Family comes to you from California.
This is NBC, the national broadcasting company.